YouTube can throttle us.
They can suppress us.
But they can't stop a text message.
1 trillion times more likely hit the courtroom and Tyler Robinson got buried. Read that again with me. 1 trillion. The ATF DNA chief tied Robinson to the rifle's trigger, stock, barrel, receiver, even the cartridges. That's not gray area. That is a forensic sledgehammer. And while Robinson walked into the 4th Judicial Courthouse under heavy SWAT presence for day 5, his defense kept clawing at bullet fragments like that wipes DNA off a trigger. No, it doesn't. Chad Grunander just called the evidence overwhelming and devastating. In a minute, I want you to hear why this delay game should infuriate every patriot watching. See, Utah Code 773872 gives Erica Kirk's family a right to speedy justice. And that's the part that stopped me cold. Because look at what this family has endured. 10 months without Charlie, days of courtroom theater, and now a case so loaded with evidence that the defense can only hammer one narrow fragment fight while the mountain stays standing. You've got Chaddy Grunander in open court saying that the evidence is overwhelming, it's devastating. You've got the ATF DNA section chief walking jurists through swabs from the trigger guard, stock, butt plate, barrel, optical accessory, receiver, and 30-6 cartridges. Every road leads back to Tyler Robinson. Every one. So why does Erica Kirk still have to wait while stall tactics chew up the calendar until September? That's the outrage. The system snaps to attention when the regime wants a conservative scalp, but when Charlie Kirk's family demands justice after an assassination, the machinery crawls. You can feel the rot in that contrast, and patriots should reject it flat out. When a courtroom record gets as airtight, you remember just how fragile every system run by screens and keystrokes really is. Everybody cheers AI in the cloud, but what happens when your money gets trapped there too? What if it doesn't live on a server you control? What if it can be frozen by a keystroke or erased by code? Noble Gold Investments gives you something real. Physical gold and silver, a coin you can hold, a bar you can stack, even a tax-advantaged retirement account with assets shipped to your door outside of the digital system. Go to nextnewsgold.com and see how to move into physical gold that can't be erased by code. And just mention my name and get a free 10-ounce U.S. independent silver bar when you open a new qualified account. America needs backbone, not dependence. So day 5 open with Tyler Robinson entering under heavy SWAT protection. Sit with that image for just a second. The state wrapped the courthouse in muscle, and inside the courtroom, the defense still tried to blur the obvious with bullet fragment chatter. Why? Because the big evidence already cornered him. DNA on the rifle, DNA on the cartridges, a prosecutor saying that the case is devastating, and a SWAT image tells you everybody knows the gravity of this murder. Now let's walk through the posts, the courtroom details, because each one tightens the vice just another notch. Tyler Robinson arriving at the 4th Judicial Courthouse for day 5 of the preliminary hearing under heavy SWAT surveillance, heavy SWAT presence. So you saw the kind of SWAT buildup you expect for a cartel boss, not a preliminary hearing. Now inside the courtroom, the prosecutor says after 4 days of testimony, the evidence against Tyler Robinson is overwhelming and devastating. Chad E. Grunander, Deputy Utah County Attorney.
Thank you. Turning to the defense, if you wish, you may call your next witness.
Judge, we would like the benefit of the record before we start taking evidence today.
Yes, Mr. Grunander, and I'll allow all parties, given the ruling of the court, briefly.
And I'll be brief, Judge. And this is in relation to the continued taking of evidence today. And I'll start my statement, Judge, with something that was very insightful that you said the other day. You mentioned, and I quote, "Sometimes you need to take time to save time," close quote. And so that's my purpose for standing up here this morning. We have spent the better part of a day, a little over 5 hours, I believe, hearing from witnesses that the defense has called at this preliminary hearing. And no doubt the defense is entitled to call witnesses at a preliminary hearing as allowed by the rules. But I think it's important that the court remind all parties about the purpose of this hearing. This is a probable cause hearing, as Your Honor has repeatedly stated. The defense has invoked the term reliability many times. And the court, frankly, has found the evidence that's been admitted, the testimony. As a gatekeeper, the court has found it reliable. It's been presented. The exhibits have been found reliable. So any questions of additional reliability are really questions of credibility of the witness and weighing of the evidence. And that is not really what this court engages in at the probable cause standard. And so this is all couched in the context of a likely forthcoming standing objection that the state may lodge if the testimony is long and drawn out and exceeds the scope of the preliminary hearing, gets into areas of a 702 hearing, possibly even trial. We will lodge this objection, but I wanted to just simply state the authority, Judge, behind our objection if we do make that. As your court is well aware, the magistrate at this stage of the case must view the evidence in the light most favorable to the prosecution. And that's cited to in a number of Utah cases, to include State v. Schmidt. Schmidt continues, "This means that when reasonable inferences from the evidence cut both for and against the state's case, the magistrate lacks the discretion to choose between them and must leave such a determination to the fact finder at trial." A few other cases I would like to refer the court to. State v. Pledger, which is a Utah 1995 Supreme Court case. Speaking of this standard, the court says, "The standard bars the magistrate from requiring the prosecution to address or even eliminate alternative inferences that could be drawn from the evidence in favor of the defense." So even assuming the defense scores points today in calling these witnesses, again, the court cannot really weigh those in favor of the defense. State v. Hester, which is a Utah Court of Appeals case 2000, where there is conflicting evidence, quote, "The magistrate may not sift or weigh the evidence, but must leave those tasks to the fact finder at trial." Of course, we're not at trial yet. State v. Virgin, a Utah 2006 Supreme Court case, indicates that a magistrate may only disregard evidence at a preliminary hearing if it is, quote, "so contradictory, inconsistent, or unbelievable that it is unreasonable to base belief of an element of the prosecution's claim on that evidence." There's a State v. Drozbecki case, which is a Utah Court of Appeals case 2010.
So the state says the case is already crushing. Next, the courtroom hears the forensic hit, maybe the hardest to explain away, DNA in the rifle that an ATF expert says was at least 1 trillion times more likely to be Tyler Robinson's.
Will you just list off the areas of that firearm where there was evidentiary support for inclusion of Tyler Robinson?
The swabs of the stock and grips of rifle, the swabs of the butt plate of rifle, swabs of the trigger and trigger guard of rifle with possible ridge detail / smudging, the swabs of the bolt of the rifle with possible ridge detail / smudging, and the swabs of the forend of the rifle.
We go to page 3.
Swabs of the barrel of the rifle with possible ridge detail / smudging, the swabs of possible ridge detail / smudging on the optical accessory.
And page 4.
The swabs of the protected underside of the receiver of the rifle after disassembly. The swabs of one .30-06 cartridge case. The swabs of one .30-06 cartridge. And the swabs of one .30-06 cartridge.
I want to ask you about a couple of those conclusions. Let's look at page 5, please. And calculation number 3, Exhibit 1.3, do you know where that swab was taken from?
I'd have to refer back to page 2.
Can we refer back to page 2, please, Kimberly? Thank you.
1.3 is the swabs of the trigger and trigger guard of the rifle.
All right, going back to page 5. And we've had some talk, some testimony from you and some questions for you about the likelihood ratios. What was your conclusion as to the likelihood ratio that you analyzed in this question in calculation number 3?
For this exhibit, the DNA profile was at least 1 trillion times more likely if it originated from Tyler Robinson as the major component and 3 unknown unrelated individuals than if it originated from 4 unrelated individuals.
You say at least 1 trillion times more likely. So it could be a much higher number than 1 trillion. Is that accurate?
It's possible.
But the protocols in your laboratory say you cap that at the number 1 trillion. Is that right?
Correct. We would not report a number higher than 1 trillion.
And it looks like you also did a probability.
So that wasn't a loose connection. Testimony put Robinson's DNA all over the rifle, from the trigger to the barrel. So why is it still dragging out? Kaylee McEnany is about to hammer the judge over delays and the victim family's right to a speedy disposition.
This is mind-blowing. Judge Tony Graff yesterday cited Article 1, Section 28 of the Utah Constitution, and that allows Erica Kirk and the family to be treated with respect, with dignity, to be free from harassment, to be informed and present at the trial. But I would love for him to cite Utah Code 773872. Do you know what that gives Erica Kirk and her family? The right to a speedy disposition of the charges free from unwarranted delay caused by or at the behest of the defendant. Where's Judge Tony Graff's affinity for that statute? Because you are not giving that to Erica Kirk. You are not giving that to that family. Yes, the defendant has Sixth Amendment rights to a speedy trial, a litany of other rights. But the fact that this is not going to be decided until September, there's no decision on probable cause. Probable cause is such a low bar. And to your point, there's ballistic evidence. There's DNA evidence. There's a texted conviction. There's the roommate saying he confessed to me. There is a litany of evidence, and she doesn't get a probable cause decision until September.
Yeah. So after the courtroom DNA, the outrage over the delay, the bigger picture is getting harder to defend, to dodge. Next, a case update lays out plainly bullet fragment arguments on one side, confessions, DNA, grieving family still waiting for justice on the other.
Oral arguments. The judge is going to allow the final defense witness. It's going to be another ATF forensic analyst. They're basically, again, the defense going to try to beat this drum that because the bullet fragments were not conclusively linked to the weapon, which happens all the time when bullets get deformed after hitting, a solid bone or part of your body, they're going to hammer that. The prosecution has already stated no rebuttal witnesses, and the judge has stated that he will take formal written arguments after today from the defense and prosecution, and oral arguments begin on September 1st.
Oh. So you heard how the family is carrying unimaginable pain with faith and strength while defense keeps pressing technicalities. Shifting gears, the next clip takes aim at the conspiracy peddling circus that's tried to muddy the case from the sidelines. And nutjob Candace Owens enters the chat.
She can connect any two events in history with yarn, thumbtacks, and unwarranted confidence. She doesn't need sources. She is the source. She once debated herself and lost twice. Intelligence agencies follow her Twitter just to see what they're doing next. She never met an obvious explanation she couldn't turn into a confusing 2-hour podcast. She possesses priceless secrets, but will share them with anyone for a small subscription fee. In her world, all roads lead to Israel, even cul-de-sacs. She is the most kooky podcaster in the world, but then again, the feds told us to say that.
Yeah. Candace Owens. After that jab at the internet cranks cashing in on the confusion, it's worth returning to what Charlie Kirk actually meant to the movement. Next, you'll hear a powerful tribute calling him the turning point for the United States.
I knew Charlie almost from the beginning. I didn't know him well at the beginning at all because we were both young people starting organizations like this one. I was a part of Concerned Veterans for America. It was a veterans organization. So I was a new CEO running that, trying to raise money. And I came in contact with this 19, 20-year-old, I guess I would say kid at that time, Charlie Kirk. And I remember he told me about his new organization, Turning Point USA, and I thought, man, that's a terrible name. I'm just being honest, I thought it at the time. Little did I know, in God's infinite wisdom, of course, Charlie Kirk was the turning point for the USA.
So the tribute makes the loss plain. Charlie wasn't just a voice, he was a force. Now we turn to his final recorded interview where he answered one last question with the faith and calm that defined him.
Last question. What is a quote that you live by?
Boy, a quote that I live by. I'm a Christian. I wear it on my sleeve, so quotes would probably always be Bible verses. I'll give you two. One is actually not in the Bible, it's more mythological, and one is actually in the Bible. The first is not in the Bible. It's "This too shall pass," which was actually, people think it's in the Bible, it's not. But it's King Solomon's phrase, which is really amazing when you think about it, because it's good no matter what season of life that you're in. If you're going through the worst of times, this too shall pass, and things are going to get better. If you're going through the best of times, though, it's really humbling. This too shall pass, and this will fade away, because this will not last forever. So I love that.
And they don't.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a time-transcendent truth that applies towards all periods as an entrepreneur. It humbles you when you need it, and builds you up when you need it, gives you hope when you need it, and also gives you a little bit of a dose of a gut check. One of my favorite verses, though, is Romans 8:28, which says that God works all things for good for those who love him. It's a very freeing and liberating verse for those of us that are Christians, because we believe that when things can be really bad, God is working it for his good, his perfect and pleasing will, which is a very, very hard teaching when you come across business closures or staff layoffs. But it's very liberating that God is working all things towards an ultimate good. So I love that, and it kind of is very freeing that I don't have to be in charge of everything. And there is a God, and I'm not him, and I surrender to his will.
Amen. So Charlie's final words about faith and endurance. Next, Turning Point action marks 10 months without him. It reminds viewers that his legacy didn't end that day. It became a movement. Today is 10 months without Charlie. His legacy is not a memory, but a movement fueled by faith and freedom.
How do you want to be remembered? If I die, everything just goes away. How would you, if you could be associated with one thing, how would you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered for courage for my faith. That would be the most important thing.
People say, are you going to run for Senate or Congress? I'd say, listen, honestly, I think the impact we're making is bigger than sometimes some of the U.S. senators. I don't know if you guys agree or not. I do. But again, I'm not trying to be braggadocious, but I can say what I want to say. We have a very successful podcast. Our campus tours are sweeping the country, billions of views. I got over 1,000 employees. I'm the most blessed. I have to pinch myself when I wake up every single day. So I get to be able to do this as my job. And so I never want to lose that. I always just want the highest and greatest in them.
The evidence is overwhelming. It's devastating. Chad E. Grunander torching the room with that quote. And he earned every word. Watch the stack of specifics here. Tyler Robinson's DNA hit on the trigger guard, the stock, the butt plate, the barrel, the optic, the protected underside of the receiver after disassembly, and even 30-06 cartridge evidence. The ATF didn't toss out some flimsy match. They nailed it at 1 trillion times more likely that the DNA came from Robinson than from somebody else. So when Robinson's defense pounds the table over distorted bullet fragments, you're watching a smoke screen in real time. That tactic doesn't erase a trigger swab. It doesn't erase the cartridges. It doesn't erase the rifle, and it sure doesn't erase Charlie Kirk, a fearless conservative Christian voice targeted and stolen from his family. Robinson's defense didn't crack the case. The facts cracked Robinson. Judge Tony Graff, stop indulging delay and give Erica Kirk's family justice. That's the demand. And after this week's testimony, nobody gets to pretend the court lacks clarity. You heard him. Call the evidence overwhelming and devastating. You watch the forensic trail hammer Tyler Robinson from the trigger to the cartridges, and you know Charlie Kirk's final recorded words still echo through this whole case. This too shall pass. That line hits differently now, doesn't it? Charlie built something bigger than one life. TPUSA said it straight. Charlie Kirk was the turning point for the USA. 10 months later, his enemies still can't bury that truth. So here's what we do. We keep the pressure on, we honor Erica Kirk's strength, and we refuse to let procedural games soften a murder case that evidence already locked down. Robinson needs full accountability. Charlie's legacy needs defenders. And this court needs to move like justice actually matters. And you know what else matters? You getting the news that you depend on. I've read your comments. I have seen your frustration. And that's why I set up this telephone number. So you get the notifications from me when YouTube refuses to send them. Thousands of patriots have already texted the words raw feed to 844-840-4963. Make sure you do as well. And I want you to support our work. If you want to, go ahead and hit the merch shelf below this video.
The system controls information. Information control is power. They don't want you to see this. The truth only survives together. They don't want this. Share this now.